I used to think words were harmless if you said them with a smile. I learned the hard way that some jokes don't sound like jokes to the person hearing them. This is the story of how one sentence I didn't take seriously changed my marriage forever. Before I continue, if you enjoy real-life stories that make you think about relationships and choices, take a moment to subscribe. These stories are honest, uncomfortable, and very real. My husband and I had been married for 6 years. From the outside, our life looked calm and stable. We both worked, paid our bills, and spent quiet evenings together. He wasn't loud or aggressive. He wasn't the type to argue or raise his voice. He was gentle, patient, and predictable. I used to say he was safe. At the time, I meant it as a compliment. But somewhere along the way, I started confusing calmness with weakness. I grew up around loud people, men who talked big, argued hard, and made themselves seem larger than life. Compared to that, my husband felt soft. He avoided conflict. He chose peace. And instead of appreciating that, I slowly began to look down on it. It didn't happen all at once. It started with small comments, little jokes in front of friends, things like, "He lets me win every argument," or "He'd apologize even if I stepped on his foot." People laughed. I laughed too. He smiled, but it never reached his eyes. I noticed that, but I told myself I was overthinking. One evening, we were sitting on the couch talking about a news story we had just watched. It was about a robbery, and the reporter was interviewing a couple who had been threatened. I made an offhand comment, something careless. I said, "Honestly, if something like that happened to us, you'd probably hide. You're not really the protecting type." I laughed when I said it. I meant it as a joke. I expected him to roll his eyes or tease me back. Instead, he went quiet. There was a pause, longer than normal. He looked at me, really looked at me, like he was trying to understand something for the first time. Then I added the line that changed everything. I said, still smiling, "I mean, you're kind of weak. You could never protect me." The smile on his face disappeared. He didn't yell, he didn't argue, he didn't defend himself. He simply stood up, slowly, calmly. He grabbed his keys from the table. I laughed again, nervously this time, and asked where he was going. He said, "I need some air." Then he walked out the door. At first, I was annoyed. I told myself he was being dramatic. I sat there scrolling on my phone, waiting for him to come back. Minutes passed, then an hour, then 2. When he finally came home, he went straight to the bedroom without saying a word. I tried to talk to him, but he said he was tired and needed sleep. The next day, he barely spoke. He wasn't angry in the way I expected. He wasn't cold. He was distant, like something had shut down inside him. I told myself it would blow over, that he'd get over it. But he didn't. Over the next few weeks, something changed. He stopped sharing his thoughts. He stopped joking. He still did everything he always did, but there was a gap between us I couldn't explain. When I touched his arm, he didn't pull away, but he didn't lean in either. One night, I finally asked him what was wrong. I told him I felt like I had hurt him, even though I didn't understand why it was such a big deal. He was quiet for a long time before he spoke. Then he said something that hit me harder than any argument could have. He said, "When you said I was weak, I believed you." That stopped me. He explained that being called weak by strangers wouldn't have mattered. Being called weak by the woman he loved, the woman he tried to protect in his own way every day, cut deeper than he knew how to explain. He said he had always known he wasn't the loudest or toughest man in the room, but he believed he was enough for me. Until that night. I tried to defend myself. I said I didn't mean it. I said it was a joke. I said he was overreacting. He looked at me and said, "Jokes reveal what respect hides." That sentence stayed with me. A few days later, I came home from work and noticed something strange. His closet was missing clothes. His dresser drawers were half empty. He sat me down and told me he was going to stay with his brother for a while. I panicked. I begged him not to leave. I apologized. I cried. I told him I didn't mean what I said. He listened. He always listened. Then he said something I will never forget. He said, "I don't think you meant to hurt me, but I also don't think you see me the way I need to be seen." He told me he needed space to understand whether he could ever feel safe with me again, not physically, emotionally. When he left, the house felt empty in a way I had never experienced. Not quiet, empty. Days turned into weeks. During that time, I replayed that moment on the couch over and over again. I started noticing things I had ignored for years: how he always walked on the street side of the sidewalk, how he checked the locks every night, how he stayed up when I was sick, how he never raised his voice even when he was hurt. I had mistaken gentleness for weakness. I started to understand that protection doesn't always look like fists and shouting. Sometimes it looks like consistency, like patience, like choosing not to hurt someone even when you're hurting. When we finally talked again, he told me he wasn't sure if he could come back, not because of one sentence, but because of what that sentence revealed. He felt unseen, unvalued, reduced. I didn't argue this time, I didn't joke, I listened. I told him the truth, that my words came from my own insecurities, from comparing him to a version of strength I never questioned. I told him I was wrong. He said he needed time. I don't know how this story ends yet. He hasn't fully come back, and I don't know if he will. What I do know is this: respect is not loud, it's quiet, and once it's gone, it's hard to rebuild. If you're in a relationship, be careful with your words. The things you say casually can stay with someone long after the laughter fades. And sometimes, the strongest thing a person can do is walk away from being disrespected. If this story made you think, subscribe for more real-life stories about love, mistakes, and lessons we learned too late.